The African Union has suspended Gabon following the takeover of power by the military in the country, days after the conduct of its 2023 presidential election. The AU Commission for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, during its meeting on the developments in Gabon on Thursday, reached the decision. The meeting was chaired by Ambassador Willy Nyamitwe of Burundi. The commission held that the country would not benefit or be part of any AU activities until democracy is restored. Meanwhile, the junta, in defiance of AU, announced that it will swear in General Brice Nguema as transitional president on Monday. The junta's spokesperson, Colonel Ulrich Mavumbi, revealed that the general's inauguration will be held at the country's constitutional court. Meanwhile, the Secretary General of the United Nations has condemned the ongoing coup in Gabon. UN spokesperson Stephen Dujarric said he did mention that the Secretary General noted with concern the announcement of election results among reports of infringements of fundamental freedoms. The Secretary General, while reaffirming a strong opposition to military coup, called on the National Army to guarantee the physical integrity of the President of the Republic as well as his family.
The Secretary General is following closely the evolving situation in Gabon. He notes with deep concern the announcement of the election results amid reports of serious infringements of fundamental freedoms. He firmly condemns the ongoing coup attempt as a means to resolve the post-electoral crisis. The Secretary General reaffirms his strong opposition to military coups. The Secretary General calls on all actors involved to exercise restraint, engage in an inclusive and meaningful dialogue, and ensure that the rule of law and human rights are fully respected.
And still on the coup in Gabon, U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield has condemned the overthrow of government in the country. The country's ambassador stated this just as the United States concluded its presidency of the Security Council for the month of August. I'm joined now by President Emeritus Corporate Council Africa, Stephen Hayes, for more on this development. Thank you for joining us this hour. We were just speaking a couple of weeks ago about the development in Niger, and here we are with another coup experience in Central Africa. Now, AU has suspended Gabon, but how much power or effect have these continental blocs have in situations like this?
Well, I was thinking along and asking the same questions. I think that the coup leaders are determined that it really doesn't amount to much to have the condemnation of the AU at this time. So I think that they have little power to change the situation.
Interesting, because we're still looking at all of the options on the table with ECOWAS and its attempt to restore democracy in Niger. But there's what they have called the hypocrisy of the West in all of this. Look at what happened in Gabon, where the deposed president was asking for his friends to make noise. Some are saying the U.S. has now condemned this, same as the UK and the United Nations. But where were they all this while that these leaders perpetuated themselves in power?
I think that's a very fair statement, and it's very perceptive. I think that in some ways it's very hard not to have sympathy for a change in Gabon at this time. The Bongo family over the last 60 years have basically plundered the country, and it's hurt the people beyond any doubt. The people have not been able to share in the wealth of Gabon. I think that they have. For instance, the French government itself said that the Bongo family has 70 bank accounts in France, 38 or 39 properties in France. So I think that there are serious questions, and I think as far as the West goes, it does indicate somewhat of a failure on military grounds, in the sense that the military has not been trained particularly well to serve the country necessarily, but perhaps we'll see. It's been a moral failure too, in the fact that, as you pointed out, we've tolerated the situation. I'm not sure what we could have done too much about it, but we've tolerated a situation where we knowingly knew this country was being plundered by one family. So it's hard, as I say, it's hard not to sympathize with change. It's hard also to support a military coup, particularly not knowing where that coup is headed. If the pattern is like many other coups, the military will use this as an opportunity to enrich the military leaders, I should say, will use this as an opportunity to enrich themselves again. So there's just a lot of questions, but I do think that what we need is all parties sitting at the table this time, not simply restore the Bongo family per se, because the election is by all accounts, nearly all accounts, except perhaps the Bongo family and its supporters themselves, that election was fraught with error, let us say. And so I think that this is an opportunity to have all parties sit at the table and work this out.
It's hard to tell what the options are really here,
Mhm.
particularly when you consider the fact that many of the Hittite leaders started out being heroes in their country, fought for independence, preferred real solutions, but then kept staying on until they become very unpopular. I'm sure you followed the developments in Rwanda and Cameroon, where both leaders that have been there for decades have now made some drastic changes in the military hierarchy. Would you say that this is sending a note of warning to such leaders within the continent?
Well, I think that's exactly why President Biye and President Kagame made these quick changes in the last 48 hours, I think, certainly sending some messages. I think that the neighbors of Gabon would be very nervous as well, including Cameroon, probably the Republic of Congo as well.
Many have questioned the world order as it is and whether or not the Western form of democracy is working for Africa. You mentioned earlier you couldn't tell what more the West could have done when people perpetuate themselves in power under the guise of democracy. Would you say it's about time that the continent begins to reconsider its system of governance?
Well, I think the more the people have a say in their own country, the better. Uh, that's to me what democracy is about. It's not simply voting, but it's having a say in how your country operates and being a part of the system. Otherwise, you're alienated and you foster the climate for coups. The world order is changing. I think the United States has been a little slow on recognizing that. I think that there's changes in the economy, there's changes in population dynamics, and so forth. So I think that we in the West have got to adapt to that change, and we've got to support that change to a considerable extent. The world order is changing. It's not necessarily for the better. It's not necessarily for the worst, but there is an opportunity still that all of us can play a role in that. All the countries can play a role in that.
In reality, military intervention hasn't brought much good, even here on the continent, particularly when you consider the situation in Gabon, where the current transitional ruler actually provided military support to the Bongos to have stayed that long in power. And you wonder if he has a different ideology entirely for, something he supported most of his life. But what options would you say were there for Gabonese people who went for an election and then the whole internet was shut down and it was obvious that the process was being manipulated?
Well, I think you're right again, and what you said is that there aren't a lot of options. I think it really depends right now on the general who has led the coup and is to be sworn in on Monday as president. Uh, he is a cousin of the Bongo, the president Bongo, and but that's not necessarily a negative sign. There's many cousins of the president. The president's father had 48 children that he acknowledged. So it's not necessarily bad as a cousin, but it does make you wonder: will there be changes, or are we just Or are we just moving to yet another person to plunder the economy? So a lot depends on the wisdom of the coup leaders and the openness to sitting down and dialogue with the various actors in the community. One of the advantages, I suppose, of Gabon is that it's only a 2 million population, of which 60% live in Libreville. So there is an opportunity to bring people around the table. Now, that's going to be hard because having a voice in the country has not been encouraged. So I think people who need to speak out, the NGO community and so forth, may be reluctant to do so. We'll find out.
So it's important for the Africa to look inside, but there's also a lot of talk about the impact of neocolonialism in all of this. But are you concerned about countries like Russia and China taking advantage of such military interruptions?
Well, I think particularly Russia will look to take advantage. It's just been the nature of their system for years and years, if not centuries. So culturally, China, any country, be it the United States, China, Russia, would look to say, all right, how do we take advantage of this? Now, then it goes back to what are the basics of their own countries that they feel that they need to further. And you hope those causes are good. Can we take advantage of this economically to help the people of Gabon as well as ourselves? Because every country looks in self-interest, whether we like that or not. And so it's going to be interesting. And yes, I am concerned, particularly how Russia handles this. But I don't see any strong Russian influence in this case. I think this seems to have been generated within Gabon with dissatisfaction over 60 years of one family plundering the country.
Interesting days ahead. President Emeritus, Corporate Council Africa, Stephen Hayes, it's good to always have you on the program.
Thank you. It's always an honor. Thank you very much.